Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Dana here. Today I will be showing you how I made this mixed media canvas. To start off this piece, I took some Distress Collage Medium and I'm just adhering down some bits of torn book pages. Now this will end up getting pretty much covered up in the end, but at least gives me a landing spot. After I got all the pieces put down, I'm just drying it off a bit with my heat tool. And then to add a bit more interest to the background, I took this feather stencil from Brutus Monroe and the Distress Crackle Paste in Opaque, and I'm just going to add a little bit to the background. After applying the crackle paste to a few different spots in the background, I'm just going to set that aside to dry. I do like to let my mediums dry naturally versus going in with the heat tool. When you dry them off with a heat tool, they do have a tendency to bubble up, and since I'm in Colorado, it's very, very dry here, so it didn't take very long to dry. Then I'm going to add in some molded pieces. All of the molded pieces that I'm going to be adding are made with this Paperclay, and the specific molds I will have down in the description box, the names of them, at least for the ones that I have names for them. And I'm just laying everything out, kind of getting a rough draft of where I want the pieces to be. For the main image, I chose a card out of this creative card set from Brutus Monroe. Once I got everything kind of laid out where I wanted it to be, I'm going to be adhering everything with the Collage Medium again, but I figured it would be easier to use the bottle versus the tub. After I got the main bits adhered, I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of pearl trim. This is just some flat back pearl trim that I got off of Amazon. And then I'm just adding on a few of the smaller detail pieces. These are just some leaf metal charms that I had in my stash. It doesn't matter that they're silver. Everything will end up being painted with gesso, so it'll cover that up. Then to add a bit more texture, I just added in a couple of pieces of cheesecloth. I love the look of gesso and painted cheesecloth. It gives it such a cool texture and such a neat look. Here I'm just adding on some paper flowers. All the paper flowers that I'll be using are from I Am Roses. I grabbed my main image again just to make sure that I'm not putting one of the flowers where I want my main image to go, so that it'll lay flat in the end, since that will be the last thing that I adhere. This is just some fabric medical tape that I'm adding to the side here. I wanted to kind of balance it out a little bit so that so that the piece wasn't just in that one spot on the canvas. It's just kind of widened it a little bit, added a little bit more visual interest. And then once I got everything glued down and set it aside a bit to dry, I'm going to give everything a light coat of white gesso. This is the gesso that I'm using, but any white gesso that you have will work. And I'm just adding that on with a paintbrush. I did probably 3-ish coats on everything, just doing a light coat each time. And once the gesso was all dry, it's time to paint. The first two colors that I'll be using are Peeled Paint and Salvaged Patina Distress Paints. Now the distress paints are formulated to work very well with water, so that's the reason that I chose them for this piece. However, any translucent acrylic paints that you have would work for this. I'm just applying the paint in random spots around the piece, and then I'm spraying it with my spray bottle just to get the paint to move and wick and do all the lovely things that distress products do. And I'll just be alternating here between the Peeled Paint and the Salvaged Patina and drying between every layer. After I finished with the blue and green paint, I wanted to grunge it up a bit, so I'm going in with some Frayed Burlap Distress Paint, and then I'll just do the same thing, applying it with a paintbrush, misting it with a bit of water to get it to move, and then drying it off with my heat tool. Once I grunged everything up, I did want to add in a bit of rust. And for the rust color, I decided to mix a bit of the Walnut Stain into Crackling Campfire. Normally, I would go with Vintage Photo over the Walnut Stain because it is a bit of a warmer brown. But I discovered I didn't have Vintage Photo Distress Paint, so I will be ordering some. So instead, I just went in with the Walnut Stain and the Crackling Campfire. And I just mixed that on my glass mat, and I'm just adding that into random spots on the piece, and again spraying it with water to get it to move and drying off every layer with my heat tool. For the shadows, I decided to just go in with Walnut Stain, and I'll be repeating the same process that I've done throughout the whole painting situation here. Once I got the shadows down, I just alternated in between the Frayed Burlap and my rust mixture, just adding a little bit more visual detail in spots that I thought it needed a little bit more oomph. After giving the paint a final dry with my heat tool, I wanted to add in a bit of interest with some Foundry Wax. I decided to use the Mined Foundry Wax, which is kind of like a copper rust color. Now, if you haven't used Foundry Wax before, you have to shake it really, really well. And then when I'm using it this way, I like to thin it out a bit with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And then I just mix it together and apply it in random spots on the piece with my finger. With Foundry Wax, in order to get it to look metallic and to be permanent on the piece, you do have to heat it up. Any heat tool will work for this, just as long as it gets completely hot, and then it'll get shiny. And of course, y'all know I had to grunge up my main image a bit. So I took my little sanding disc tool and my distress tool, and I'm just grunging that up and distressing the edges. And then to add a bit more of a worn look, I'm going around the edges with my Walnut Stain Distress ink pad. And then I decided I wanted to fold up one of the edges, so I'm just folding it up around my paintbrush. And then so it's not so stark white, I just went in with the Walnut Stain ink on the back of the piece here. And to finish everything off, I'm just gluing that main image right into the center with my Collage Medium. I decided I wanted to add one more little embellishment here. This is just a metal butterfly embellishment that I had in my stash. And I'm just gluing that on with my Collage Medium. Since it was kind of a antique-y color, I decided not to alter the butterfly at all. For a bit of cleanup, I just grabbed my gesso again, and I'm just going around the edges, kind of cleaning up some of the paint splatters that ended up there that I didn't really want. And then I let that dry, and that completely finishes off today's piece. I had so much fun making this. It was very nice. I had a loss here recently and haven't felt very creative, so it was nice just to, you know, kind of let loose and get a little messy with some paint. But I hope you all enjoyed, and I would love to hear what you thought about this different video, doing a mixed media piece. I really love doing mixed media pieces, and I want to know what y'all think. If you'd like to see more videos like this from me, or maybe every once in a while, or, you know, just let me know in the comments what you think. But as always, I hope you enjoyed, and take some time to pamper your inner goddess, and I will see you in the next one.